tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They were hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal, it's hit him on the pad, he's out! Lions gone, New South Wales are 9 down, onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car! Oh, I think it's hit a car! What a way to bring up your 50!
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Oh, hello everybody, and welcome back to the longest running cricket podcast in Australia. I am Manners, and I'm here to wrap up day 3 from the SCG, and Australia have taken full control of this 5th Ashes test. They started the day at 2 for 166 and they finished at 7 for 518. They scored 5 for 352 in the day, almost 46,200 people on Jane McGrath Pink Day saw a Travis Head century and then a Steve Smith century. A wonderful day for Australia, scoring over 4 runs and over, and they lead England already by 134 runs. Steve Smith is currently 129 not out, and Bo Webster is 42 not out. So 7 for 518 for Australia at the end of the day. I think when I look back at today, I'll think about the history-making performance from Steve Smith. It was his 37th Test 100. He went past numerous records, which we'll get to later in the podcast. And Travis Head made his 13th Test century. Australia were very good today. They were measured. They were ambitious in trying to grind England into the dirt. But England had a shocker today. It started off badly when they couldn't dismiss Michael Neser, and they burnt their last 2 reviews on him. So before they'd even dismiss Neser, all their reviews were gone. The fielding was bad. There were drop catches. The bowling was bad. And Matthew Potts had an all-time stinker today with the ball. Bryden Cast continues to bowl rubbish. He gets wickets, but he bowls a lot of trash in between. And there was some pretty ugly cricket at times. Fielders on the boundary. Jacob Bethel bowling defensive spells. And look, I would just imagine that this English team are desperate to get back on the plane home after what's been an all-time disappointing Ashes series. That win in Melbourne will really stand out as a bit of a red herring, I think, because Australia are going to go on and win this game, and I think they're going to win it pretty comfortably. Tomorrow, I can see England collapsing in the afternoon, and this being a 4-day test match. Unless, of course, Australia bat most of tomorrow, but I think Australia will look to bat as long as they can tomorrow, and then put England into bat with a bigger lead as possible. So I can't see England getting out of this one. It's the pitch is already going up and down, just starting to play a few tricks. Still good batting conditions. Steve Smith said afterwards it's a good batting pitch, but in between there's the odd ball playing tricks. And with Australia's accurate and very good fast bowling, they'll do a lot better than England have done today. I mean, let's just start off with some of the stats from today. Travis Head brought up his 12th Test century, his 3rd of the series, and he went to 103 off 105 deliveries, eventually being dismissed for 163, 12 short of his highest test score of 175. Brilliant innings from him today. Michael Neser was very conservative early on, just knocking the ball around, and Travis Head just kept the scoreboard ticking. Australia brought up the 200 in 44 overs. Then one of the real moments of the day really sums up England's tour. Travis Head just smashed one to deep mid-wicket. Really easy catch for Will Jacks, who was on the deep mid-wicket boundary, and he spilled an absolute dolly, and there was some roars from the crowd. Now, I heard Travis Head speaking on another podcast going into this test match that he and Will Jacks are actually really good mates, and their partners are good friends, and they often go out to dinner as a double date, the 4 of them. Well, I would suggest after today, the next dinner should be on Travis Head, because that was a gift from Will Jacks. And then actually he dropped Head just before lunch, a difficult caught and bowled. Neser and Head put on an annoying 50-run partnership, but Neser was eventually out for 24. and 24 off 90 balls. Really good innings from Michael Neser. I guess the thing that Neser did was he just tired the England bowlers out. The fact that they got through their first spells and couldn't get a wicket must have really frustrated Stokes. So they put on 72 in the end, Neser and Head, and when he was out it was 3 for 234, and that brought Steve Smith to the crease, and he and Travis Head put on a nice partnership. And Steve Smith said one of the good things about batting with Travis Head is when they're bowling to Travis Head, they forget about what they're going to do to the other batter because he's just carting them all over the place. So anyway, Australia went to lunch 3 for 281. They still trailed by 103. Head 162 not out, Smith 16 not out. Then soon after lunch, Head was out LBW to Jacob Bethel, sweeping across the line. He reviewed it, but he was plumb in front. He went for 163 off 166, adding just 1 to his score after lunch. And I think Travis Head was very dirty getting out to Jacob Bethel. But I could kind of see it coming because I wouldn't say Head was playing loosely, but he was chancing his arm at every opportunity. And so I wasn't surprised that maybe he just got himself out there. So anyway, Australia 4 for 288. That brought Khawaja to the crease in his final test match for Australia, and he got a rousing reception from his home crowd. But then at the middle session, England just fell apart. You know, they took the second new ball. Matthew Potts bowled terribly again. Bryden Cast serving up 4 ball after 4 ball. I don't have Matthew Potts' figures here, unfortunately, but he went for almost 150 today. And it's in its record areas of awfulness for Matthew Potts in this Ashes test. So his test career is on the line, actually. I mean, you can't imagine him picking him for another test after that. Smith went to his 50 off 95 balls. Khawaja was given out LBW off Cast for 17. He did review it, but it was like plumb as you can get. You know, half Yorker on middle stump hitting your toe. And I do think it was a last test match review. I don't think he'd have reviewed that if he was going to play another game. But also, can you blame him? His last test match, he may as well have a crack. Australia 5 for 339 at that point. And Steve Smith was just batting so easily today. Once he got going, he was just working the ball into the gaps, playing beautiful shots. He was, imperious pulling today. He played some great cut shots or back foot drives. It was vintage Steve Smith. He hasn't scored an Ashes century in Sydney since the 17-18 series, so it's been quite a while between drinks for Ashes hundreds at his home ground. And look, when Carey came out, he looked so good. Carey was in supreme form, but then he did what he did in Melbourne. Josh Tongue comes on, leg slip, and he just turned it straight to Jacob Bethel, and he was out for 16. And it's the third time in the series he's fallen for the trap. He threw his head back in disgust, and I just wonder if he can't help himself, or he didn't know the fielder was there. But I find it very strange that you're Alex Carey, you know there's a leg slip, and you play that shot, especially after what happened in Melbourne. So Australia 6 for 366, and I guess a small window for England here. If they could have run through the last 4 wickets, they could have kept the lead maybe a little bit less painful than it is now. But, that brought an under pressure Cameron Green to the crease, and he and Smith got through the tea break. Smith 65 not, Green 8 not out. And I really thought the last session was a big one for Cameron Green. He would never get better batting conditions than that. Tired, shithouse English attack. Good pitch, hot day, runs on the board, no pressure, make 100. Well, make a big score. Put your stamp on this series. Well, he did pretty well for a while, but eventually he was out for 37 off 64 balls and a terrible dismissal. Bryden Cast dropped the ball short, and Green just compulsively hit it to the fielder in the outfield. It was, actually, I was listening to the commentary, but the Green's bat came down to up. So he was never going to keep that pull shot down, and a very bad dismissal because he got himself out. And that's what England are hoping for. In fact, that's what England were hoping for all afternoon in that last couple of hours. There was no thought to let's try and get a batter out. A lot of it was let's hope one of these idiots makes a mistake. And it didn't happen. So there were some significant records by Steve Smith in this match, just further underlining his greatness. He went into the second spot as Test run scorers at the Sydney Cricket Ground, going past Alan Border, and now he's just behind Ricky Ponting, who's got a few hundred in front. So Smith might catch him with a couple of good Test matches at home. But, you think about all the players that have played at the Sydney Cricket Ground over the years, and he's now number 2 on the list. And then the big one, when he scored his 84th run, he went past Jack Hobbs as the second leading run scorer in all Ashes cricket. The only player ahead of Smith now is one Donald Bradman. So interestingly, Hobbs scored 3,636 Test runs in 41 tests, and Smith went past him in his 41st Ashes test. So neck and neck, Smith going past the great Jack Hobbs. He averages over 55 in Test cricket, and it was a brilliant innings from Smith. He eventually brought up 100. He brought up his 37th Test century and his 13th. It was his 13th century versus England. Only Don Bradman has more Test Ashes centuries. So it was 13th Ashes 100, 13th versus England, and only Bradman has more in Ashes cricket. So that is one hell of a record. It was his 5th Test century at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and it was his 18th Test century as skipper. I mean, they are some phenomenal stats. When you look at the prism in which Ashes cricket is viewed, the fact that is Australia's premier cricket series, the fact that Smith has dominated just shows what a champion he is. No easy runs. He's scored runs in the most pressure. He's won a few Ashes series off his bat. I mean, I was trying to think about this. 17-18 definitely. 2019 definitely. Look, I'm exaggerating. Of course, other players made huge contributions, but those two in particular stand out. 13-14, he made a couple of hundreds. I mean, he's just been a beast in Ashes cricket. And for him to be only behind Bradman on the record books, it's quite incredible. Rick Finlay also noted something interesting, that this is the first time Joe Root and Steve Smith have scored a century in the same Test match. When you think about their legacy, that's quite a little factoid that this Test match will be looked back on. But yeah, England just going through the motions this afternoon. But yeah, this is a day to celebrate the greatness of Steve Smith. He looked determined on a good pitch to make some runs. He was very upset about missing the Adelaide Test when there are lots of runs on offer there, so I don't think he was going to miss out today. But, I've loved covering Steve Smith since he began playing, but especially since I started this podcast in 2013, and that was just before he scored his first Test century. And to think now he's scored 37, 13 Ashes hundreds, so many runs at the SCG. I mean, you can talk about records like chasing down Tendulkar and stuff, but Smith's the ultimate competitor. When it really is tough, he makes runs. And Bo Webster's 42 not out, such a hotly, fiercely debated topic whether Green or Webster should be the all-rounder. So, Webster has a real chance tomorrow to go on from this start and try and make his first 10th century and make it really hard for the selectors to drop him. So Australia well on top. As I said at the top, I can see this Test match ending tomorrow. Australia bat till about lunchtime, and then England just get bowled out in a couple of hours, and they're on the next flight to London, and we're all heading home. So that's the way I'm thinking, and I'd love a 4-1 result. I think that's probably appropriate when you consider England didn't win a live Test. I don't think 3-2 would be good, and it's hard to see England winning from here. I guess, okay, how do England win from here? If I'm an English fan, 134 behind. Bowling Australia out quickly tomorrow. That's a must. Keep the lead around 150. Then go out and play your Baz ball and get to 300, just slogging it on a bad wicket. And then Australia have to chase 150 on the 5th afternoon with the pitch going up and down. So that might be England's only shot. Now, just a couple of things before I finish up. A few asides from today. Had lunch with Stuart Broad again. Lovely chap. Talked about a few things. Sat next to Michael Atherton for a while. Had a good chat with NASA. Reminded Michael Atherton of when he declared on Graham Hick on 98. I don't think he was too happy with me bringing that up. But anyway, look, it was good fun. And Atherton and Hussain and Broad, all really great guys. Good to meet them. Also had a good chat with Henry Moran from the BBC, who was very down on England after their tour. And finally, shout out to, you know what? I'm going to give a stocks up. And that, who that stocks up to is Chris Stocks from the iPaper. He's a guy who can have a bit of a joke. You can say a few things on a podcast, or you can, if you're in his case, write a few silly articles about the Australians and have a bit of a laugh about it at the back of the press box. So stocks up to Chris Stocks. All right, well, that is it for the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. Day 3 from the Sydney Cricket Ground. Australia well on top with Steve Smith and Bo Webster unbeaten. What a day. Century for Travis Head, century for Steve Smith, and England